see that the theme of the world is justice, or mishpat. And if you recall, we said that the theme of existence, we see that the theme of existence is based on mishpat. And if you remember, we said that the purpose of that was because of Nam Neksufa. That in order to make it possible for someone to go into Olam Haba without the strain or the discomfort of this busha, embarrassment that the neshama would feel by receiving the reward of Olam Haba on a continuous basis without, what the Baruch Shem said was that the neshama now has to earn it or work for it. You see? And what we've been discussing up to now is the Hanhagas HaMishpat. The Hanhagas HaMishpat are the series of activities which emanate from God in order to establish or resolve the problem of Nam Neksufa. This was essentially what the Hanhagas HaMishpat was. Nam Neksufa being the problem of receiving something for nothing, or receiving something gratis, and this is experienced by the neshama as a chason, as a problem. And what the Hanhagas HaMishpat did was to create a circumstance, a situation, which is Olam Hazeh, this world, which would allow the neshama to rectify this disturbance. What we're going to discuss tonight is another series of activities with a different set of objectives. And that essentially is what's called HaYichud. It is a very different type of Hanhaga. It's a very different type of behavior than Hanhagas HaMishpat. It is a very mysterious Hanhaga, number one. It is something which very few people are aware of in terms of its basic principles. It is a Hanhaga which is called the hidden Hanhaga. And it is Hanhaga whose understanding is kept above generally what we are allowed to know. It is only recently with Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto that he has begun to, in a sense, reveal what the Hanhagas HaYichud was about. How God acts with the world based on his yichud and not based on mishpat. Mishpat is concerned with justice. It's concerned with tov latovim v'ra l'goyim, good to the good and punishment to the wicked. It's based on earning what you achieve, what you have. It's based on effort. It's based on strict law. It's based on cause and effect. Yichud, the Hanhagas HaYichud, is based on a different type of objective, a totally different type of process. A very strange and a very mysterious process. What we're going to do tonight is just briefly review some of the essential characteristics of the Hanhagas HaYichud. And we will leave it for other times to go into it deeper. What do we want to know about the Hanhagas HaYichud? Well, first of all, we want to know its objective. What is it trying to achieve? What is it trying to accomplish? Number two, what essentially is its process or its mechanism? How does it achieve its objective? And number three, what is its interaction with the Hanhagas HaMishpat? How does it interact with the other Hanhaga, which is extant, the Hanhagas HaMishpat? Unless we have a clear idea of these three features, we cannot have a clear idea of the Hanhagas HaYichud. And even if we have a clear idea of these three features, we can only obtain a clear idea up to a certain point. Why? Because the Baruch Shem will not allow us to go beyond a certain point. This is the way the Baruch Shem guides the world. It is a fundamental cause of most of the things that we see out there. most of the things that happen in your life are based on Hanhagas HaYichud, not the Hanhagas HaMishpat, at this point in time. And it is the key Hanhaga which is responsible for all those unexplained aspects of reality that make no sense and that look absurd. You see, comes from the Hanhagas HaYichud. To begin to dispel some of the darkness, we've got to answer some of these key questions. And that's what we're going to find out. First, objective. What's the objective of Hanhagas HaYichud? We've mentioned last week a very serious problem with Bechira. And what we have said was what? That Bechira, in a certain way, free will, is antagonistic to God's will. Why is that? The Baruch gives us the choice to go one way or to go the other. We have absolute free will. That's what the Baruch says to us. But the Baruch also has a will. He also has a desire. And his desire is laheitim. His desire is to do good. Meaning that he wants creation or the Bria to achieve a certain point. He wants us to get somewhere. That's what he wants. He doesn't just make this so that in the end it's corrupted and it's destroyed. That's not what the Baruch wants. He doesn't want to destroy the Bria. If he creates the Bria, he created so that it will lead to a certain hatava. That's his will. If that's his will, that must be. Because his will is existence itself, just like he is. And since the Yichud of the Baruch means that he is his own will, and that both together is identical to existence, the Baruch will that there exists a hatov at the end must be. So you have a big problem. God, in order to fulfill the Baruch's will, the ultimate hatov must be. But in order to allow free will to a man, then it means the ultimate hatov may be. Because if man chooses against it, he will destroy the entire thing. So free will of man gives a maybe to the ultimate objective. And the will of God says must be. How do you reconcile a maybe with a must be? This is a very, very difficult question. It's one of the most difficult questions that I've ever seen, really. And I do not have yet a full, clear answer to this, admittedly, to this dilemma. It is a very, very difficult dilemma to resolve. And what we will attempt to do is resolve it to a substantial degree, but there are many levels to that resolution. The Hanhagas HaYichud are the series of activities which attempts to resolve that crisis. It's a way of guaranteeing or ensuring that ultimately the will of God is manifest, that the hatava of the world comes to pass. What again is the objective of Hanhagas HaYichud? Okay, we just labeled one objective. An insurance policy, a backup system, a safeguard. Call it what you want. That's what it is. What it does is, the Hanhagas HaYichud, when activated, and it has to be activated, suddenly interacts with the Hanhagas HaMishpat in such a way as to prevent the Hanhagas HaMishpat from destroying the world. Again, the basic interaction, when the Hanhagas HaMishpat says to the person, you have free will, do what you want. And the man has a choice, either do a mitzvah, do good, or do a chait, do evil. The person, let's say, chooses evil over good, and he chooses it consistently. There reaches a point when Din or Mishpat says, hey, what's going on here? The man has gone too far. It is now time for the ultimate destruction of this being and of the world that he represents. Because we can only tolerate so much backsliding. So the Hanhagas HaMishpat suddenly demands what? It demands what's called ibud. Ibud means destruction. The Yetzer Hara, who's called the Makatre, runs up to the Rebbeinu Shalom. He's a malach, the Satan, runs up to the Rebbeinu Shalom, and he is the angel that represents the Hanhagas HaMishpat. He runs up to the Rebbeinu Shalom and says, I accuse mankind of terrible deeds, and the basis of justice, I demand, justice demands, that the world be entirely annihilated. That's what din demands. When it reaches a certain level of Ra, what does the Rebbeinu Shalom do? Serious problem. You see. Now you may say, but has ever such a thing ever happened? Nah. This thing happens constantly. Constantly. It has happened already. This world is not a doubt in my mind that December 30th, 1985, it has been paskin in the Bezin Shamala that this world must be annihilated. Right now. It was paskin at that time in the time of Noah, wasn't it? And the world was annihilated. Noah survived. How? Not because of Hanhagas HaMishpat, because of Hanhagas HaYichud. You see. It is now the same din. How do we know that? How do we know this? I want to present to you a very curious phenomenon of a current day event, and you're going to see something very interesting. The Satan runs up to the Rebbeinu Shalom, and the Satan says to the Rebbeinu Shalom the following: the world has lost its chusam. There is too much evil in the world. The world should be annihilated. The justice demands that they're not. Man has abused his free will. That's what the Satan says. Okay. Suddenly, as soon as the Satan says that, a host of other malachim come up, other beings whose job it is to bring up the defense of Chazal, chusam, and say, that's not true. That's not true. You see, there are a lot of chusam. And what you find is an enormous battle on both sides of the din. The accuser, and the defender. What they call in Hebrew the Makatrik and the Hanhaga. The Kateg and the Hanhaga. What they call the accusing force and the defending force. Now, when mankind comes to a certain point, and suddenly this battle goes on, what happens is that if the accusing side wins, man is pushed further towards annihilation. Further. Meaning that even if there's a defending force that goes against it and says, wait a minute, it's true mankind is very bad, but they're not yet worthy of annihilation. They may be almost worthy of annihilation. So what the Rebbeinu Shalom does is bring them a little further towards that, but he stops it, so it doesn't happen. The Makatrik, the Satan, keeps on accusing. Generation after generation after generation. He's constantly there, you see. Until finally, he begins to win. And he says, mankind should annihilate itself. It should be annihilated. There's too much evil in the world. So what does the Rebbeinu Shalom say to the Satan? How do you propose to do it? So the Satan says, I will tell you how I propose to do it. I will give man himself the ability to annihilate himself. Such a thing has never happened. Man never had the ability to annihilate himself from the beginning of Adam Rishon. But in 1945, suddenly, man is given that ability. That's really what it is. When the atomic age was ushered in, what does that mean? What does that mean relative to what's going on in the Shemayim? What happened at that point in time is that for a strange reason, suddenly the Makatrik, the Satan won. He literally won. And the gift of annihilation was given to men. What does that mean? The Satan now no longer has to run up and say, let's annihilate man. You see. Man already has the instrument. The Satan simply has to say, let's use it. His ability of Kidruk is much easier now. You see, we stand much closer to the execution block than before. You see, when you're accused of something and you're guilty, then they say, okay, let's make an execution block. But you've got to go now and create an execution block. You see, once you found guilty enough that there is an execution block, then the problem now is very simple. Let's use it. So the Makatlik has a much easier job now. He doesn't have to convince the Rebbeinu Shalom. The Sultan doesn't have to convince the Rebbeinu Shalom to what? To create the processes of annihilation. Obviously he succeeded. You see, the Rebbeinu Shalom says, okay, Nadach, have what you want. I give man the gift of his own determination. You see. What the Sultan is now doing is running up constantly to the Bezdin Shemala and saying, wait a minute, now I've got it. You see. So he says, let's use it. So what happens? So the Rebbeinu stops and they try and defend it. If they can't defend it, then the Rebbeinu goes on to the second step. You see. You can't annihilate mankind with an atomic bomb, a nuclear weapon. You need a delivery system. You need a missile system. So it takes another 20 years to get that technology. You see. So by the time you have the 60s already, obviously the point of annihilation, you're much closer. You've got the weapons and you've got the delivery system. And you've got 30,000 ICBMs pointed in all directions. You see. What do we see? That the Makatlik is even more successful. He is finally with his Kitur. You don't see what Kitur means accusation. His Kitur has been so successful that he has implanted the ability of annihilation in the world, and he's implanted now not only the ability, but actually the probability of the event. Because now mankind is given additional chokhmah. This science which man is given, and man is proud of and revels, is the tools of his ultimate destruction. You see. They don't realize that. And these tools are not given to him from the Malach HaToiv. These tools are being given to him from the Malach HaRa. Because the Yitzhak, the Sultan, and all the aspects of Din want man to become super geniuses, you see, in nuclear processes. They want it. Why? Because then now man has now the impossibility of suicide. So what do you have? If you have a boulder, a very heavy rock, and you want to put that boulder, and you want to throw it over the precipice, and let's say the precipice is 100 feet away. Well, you want to throw it over, fine. But first you got to get it to the edge. So you got to schlep it. That's what it is. The entire battle of accusation is an attempt to get that rock to the edge and then tip it over. You see. In 1945, that rock was only 10 feet from the edge. You see. In the 60s, that rock is sitting on the edge. You want to know, where are we holding? You see. Where are we holding in the din of the world? Where is the clear holding? Why ask me? Look at the world itself. You can see. Mankind itself will reveal to you what the psak din, what the decision of the Shemayim has been with respect to human survival. We're at the precipice. You see. Now, all the Satan has to do is find a little ammunition. That's it. A little bit. Another kibbutz. It doesn't have to be so big. In order to get the rock from here, 100 feet to the edge, you've got to exert an enormous amount of energy. That means that the kibbutz, or the accusation, which is required to get the rock to the edge, must be a very large kibbutz. But once that rock is sitting on the edge, to knock it over, you require much less energy, which means that the sucker requires much less energy to push that rock over. His kibbutz doesn't have to be as big as it was before, really, because it's already sitting at the edge. The Gemara says that the Sultan always runs up and begins to accuse an individual when he's in a Mokum Sakana. When a person goes into a situation which is literally dangerous, like in a wartime, you see, or certain situations, or a person goes under an operation, medically, or whatever have you, or he's involved in an accident, or whatever have you, that's the moment, when he's involved in a sakana, that's the moment that the Makatlik runs up and says, you see that guy? Let's get rid of him. You see. That's why, because when a person is already into the thing, when a person has to undergo surgery, or when a person is already at the battlefront, you see, and he's facing death, it doesn't take much to get that thing done. You see. It takes a little extra kit work and it's over. You see. The battle is to get the person in that Makom Sakana. It took 5 700 and maybe 30 years to get that rock to sit at the edge. From the time of Adam Rishon, that Satan has been working overtime to get that rock to the edge, with constant accusations against mankind. And finally, from the time of Adam Rishon to 1945, that's how long it took. That's a long time. Thousands and thousands of years. But we're here. We've made it. We're sitting at the edge. You see. The world is in a totally different situation than it was prior to 1945. Because prior to 1945, like we're saying, we've got to get to the rock to the edge. Now that the rock is sitting on the edge, by virtue of its own balance already, it's already teetering. Which means that it can just about fall on its own. Which means that the Eitel who's trying to push the rock over, now it's got the easy part of the job. The one who's got the tough job is the other malachim, the Hanhaga, the defending ones, who now have to keep that rock from going over. That means from the 60s and on, there's an enormous clamor in the Beit Mishmala to save the world. Prior to that, there was an enormous clamor in the Beit Mishmala to annihilate the world. You see what I'm saying? It was on the other side of the litigation. You see, the ones who had the ability to save the world was much easier because they were called Muslim. Because the supposition was in their favor, the presumption was in their favor. You see, the rock was very far from the precipice. You see, so they didn't have to exert themselves to save the world so much. It's the one who wanted to annihilate the world that had to really do the job. He had to find all the accusations and the chatoim that man did and the evil that men do. He's the one that had to work hard. Now it's the reverse. The guy's got to work hard on the defending of malachim. The Satan is now sitting back he's sitting back like this, and it's a very simple matter, If you don't do your job in a good defense, it's all over. You see, his accusation is so powerful that he doesn't have to work that. You see, he will simply win just by default on the side of the defense because the thing is at the edge. Nobody knows that, but no one really knows that. What I'm saying is an enormous thing if you realize the implication. That the din of the Bria of all creation is literally absolutely different than it was 30 years, and than it was 40, 50 years ago. The world is no longer what it was 50 years ago. Something very significant has changed, yet nobody knows it. No one knows it all. If you look at the world itself, you will see that. Everyone runs out here, peace now, nuclear disarmament, and so on. These are dreams. And these are meaningless things. Why? Whether or not mankind has the ability for nuclear armament or disarmament has nothing to do with demonstrations. It has nothing to do with what people want, or has nothing to do with the minds of dictators. It has nothing to do with the mood of Reagan and the mood of Gorbachev. It's not relevant. It has nothing to do with nuclear disarmament treaties. Nothing. It has to do with the state of the world in terms of the Beit Mishmala, in terms of the din that's on humanity as a whole. If they paskin up here that mankind is annihilated, there is nothing that anyone can do to save the world. Forget it. You see. And if they haven't paskin it, if they haven't decreed such a thing, then Gorbachev can stand on his feet from now till tomorrow, yelling to push all kinds of buttons, and absolutely nothing will happen. You see. That's where it is. We do not have the ability, really, to control what happens to the world directly. We think that we can control human events politically, economically. No, it has nothing to do with that. Events in the world are controlled by the Hanhagas, and they're controlled by the schusim, by the deeds of each individual, collectively, all of mankind. You see, that's really where the control is. What, therefore, is the Hanhaga which is attempting to destroy the world? What Hanhaga has brought to the world to this precipice? The Hanhagas HaMishpat. I want to give you a graphic understanding of what the Hanhagas HaMishpat is. It is not... It's not 11 letters on the board. It's not 2 words on that board, the Hanhagas HaMishpat. It is a force. It is a reality. It is a reality which succeeded in totally altering the position of mankind with respect to survival, and has totally succeeded because the basic representative of Hanhaga Mishra, the accusing angel, is the Satan himself. What then saves the world? What gives it clear? Why is it that the Satan has not succeeded? Why has it taken him so long to get where he is? Because of the Hanhagas HaYichud. You see? And the Hanhagas HaYichud says even more. Not only will it take the Satan so long to get its position, but the Hanhagas HaYichud says that the Satan will never succeed. That's the guarantee of the Hanhagas HaYichud. The Satan will not. It's frightening, isn't it? We're almost there. It's almost over. It's almost finished. You see? In fact, I think there's a group of political strategists who constantly, I think, monitor where the world is holding in terms of the end of the world. I forget what the name of the group is called. And everyone knows that we are, if you have a clock of 24 hours, we are in the 11th hour in the 59th minute. You see? Like it's known. The slightest thing can open up a complete conflagration and the world's annihilated. Anything can start an atomic war. Any stupid thing. What? What can start it? There must be 30 different things going on in the world now that can start it. All kinds of terrorist organizations, all kinds of revolutions, all kinds of everything that are literally there. You see, the kitzur has been so enormous. The kitzur is so enormous. You see, mankind obviously is such an abysmal failure in terms of what he's supposed to be doing. Is that not only the stone at the edge of the precipice, but there are constant rumblings on the mountain itself which want to push that stone over. Again, not only the stone at the edge of that mountain, sitting there, you see, teetering, whether or not you go over, but the mountain goes under continuous earthquakes. It's like, my God, how does that stone stay there? What keeps it there? You see. So the Makatan succeeded in every aspect. That the stone is at the edge, you see, that it's almost about to fall over, and that there are constant earthquakes on the mountain itself. It's an unstable environment which the stone is staying on. That's really what it is. What's the unstable environment? Well, read your papers. Every other day there's another Hanhagas in the world. And every day there's something else which has the potential to ignite the whole thing. What do you think the Satan is doing? The Satan does not convince the Banisham now to destroy the world. He just has to what? He has to see to it that two important nations, you see, get to a conflict where the whole thing goes over. He has to see to it now. All he has to see is that a bunch of terrorists get a nuclear weapon. That's all he has to do, really. He has to put an A-bomb in the hands of the Arabs, for example. And that's what he has to do. That will start World War III. Almost assuredly, in one way or another. All he has to do is give Gaddafi, you see, a MIRV, or 100 megaton bomb, you see, and you will have World War III. He doesn't have to go through the whole process of getting the stone to the edge. He just simply has to strike the match. That's all it is. We live in a world where literally it's filled with gunpowder. Barrels after barrels after barrels of gunpowder. You see, all of them with cute little fuses coming off of them, you see. And there's a little chair, and all the fuses come in one spot. And there's a little chair, and there's a guy sitting on that chair. And what is he doing? He's got a lighter in his hand. And he doesn't see this, basically. And what he's doing is, constantly flicking that switch. And as he does it, the switch gets closer and closer to the fuses. That is the state of the world, you see. When the world started by other Mauritians, the world was not filled with gunpowder, it was an empty room. But it took 5,730 years, or whatever the story is, or 710 years, however it is, you see, to get the room filled with gunpowder, to get all the fuses in one spot, to get a man sitting there and to have him play around with a lighter. You see, that's what it is. That's literally where the world is holding us in. That's the Hanhagas Mishra. It's an extremely unstable situation. The truth of the matter is, the world now literally lives by nets, from day to today. It's obvious, isn't it? You see? If you have a patient, and that patient, you see, is totally filled with tumors throughout his system, every day that he lives is a mess. If you have a person, you see, with all his arteries clogged up, basically, and there's very little left, that guy is living on a net. That's what this is. This world is literally living on a net. Because the incredible thing is why it hasn't ignited already. That's the power of the Hanhagas HaYichud. The Hanhagas HaYichud is so powerful, it's so awesome, that it can allow the Hanhagas HaMishpat to do what it does. It can allow the room to fill up with gunpowder. It can allow all the fuses to come to one spot. It can allow the person to constantly play around with that lighter, maybe 3 inches from that, but it will not go off. So if we exist, we must thank the Hanhagas HaYichud, you see, because it's reached the point that the Hanhagas HaYichud has to work unbelievably overtime just to keep this world alive. What have I done? I've given you a dramatic presentation of these two Hanhagas. This is not theory. It's not theoretical stuff. What I told you, I have no doubt, is absolutely true. That's the way I see it. I have no doubt that the way I describe it is exactly what it is. I cannot prove it to you. I can't run up to the bed in Shemala and run down with their decree. I can't do that. But I have no doubt that it's written in red ink exactly what I've told you. And if you don't believe me, look at the world. And the world itself will tell you. The world is not a result of political movements, you see, or wars, or tyrants, or terrorists. It is a result of din. And the world is a reflection of the state of din at that point in time. And if the world looks the way it does, it's because mankind has been judged for annihilation. With that introduction, we now have to understand how does the Hanhagas HaYichud save this situation. See, that's really what we have to understand as best as we can. Any questions? Do you now know what the objective of the Hanhagas HaYichud is? Need I be more specific? You know? You see? I'm not telling you a theoretical objective of the Hanhagas HaYichud. I've told you now what the objective of the Hanhagas HaYichud is on December 30th, 1945. I've just told you what it does. Mamish what it does. That's what it's doing right now, you see. It is attempting to save the world from annihilation. Yeah.
Is all of mankind that's being judged here, or is it just the Jews? And then the rest of the world?
The latter part. The existence of the Goyim, and we'll go into that deeper, depends on the existence of the Jews. When God decided to differentiate mankind into Jews and Goyim, you see, essentially all of it depends on the Jews, depending on what they do. When we talk about the din of the world, we're really referring to din on Jews, on Klal Yisrael. It is the Jews who control everything that happens in the world, but it's an invisible control. The Medrash says a very interesting thing. The Medrash says that if the Goyim understood that everything that happens in the world happens because of the Jews, if they could see that linkage, you know what they would do? They would take 2 Goyim on each Jew, and they each have enough, with weapons, swords, at that time it was swords, and they would stand by each Jew and force them to Mekayim the Torah. Then I think that's what it is. If they were aware of the hidden aspect, that it is the Jew that brings the sword to the Goyim, as such, well, not totally, but it's the Jew's responsibility. In him rests survival or annihilation. They would force him to Mekayim the Torah, and he would have no choice. Except that the Goyim don't realize it. Not only that, they try to do everything they can to take the Jew away from the Torah. They try to influence him in every way possible, and they try to convert him and do whatever they can to what? To take away his Torah. But that's direct annihilation. If they did that, it would destroy the world. There is no other purpose to creation. But that was the Jews' Jews represent. You see, what that is, we're going to begin to go into very shortly. But that's the situation. And this is what happens, you see. You know, when you read in davening, a very interesting thing, it says, if you read in the davening, it says, at the end of each shachos in the morning, it says, I think that was, that's what it says. It says there, Talmidei Chachamim, those who are learned in Torah, Jewish Shemayim, these people bring peace to the world. And then it brings a pasuk to corroborate that. Now if you really think about that, what does that mean? You mean to tell me if I sit in my room and I open up a Chumash and I start learning, if I learn the Gemara, if I listen to the Shir, you see, you mean I'm bringing peace to the world? I mean, how naive can you get? What I do, what does that have to do with what's going on in Russia, Soviet Russia? What does that have to do? What am I, a Kissinger or something like that? But that's the point. The truth of the matter is, you are the one that really pushes the buttons. Because when you sit and learn, and you do what you have to do as a Jew, you bring down the Sosum and the Kedusha to the world automatically. You fill the world with a light. You can't see it, but you fill the world with a light. That light has the immediate effect of beginning to influence events that happen. And what happens is, in Gorbachev's mind, he gets up in the morning and he says, you know something? I would like to develop a better relationship with the U.S. I really would. And I know that one of the things that will do it is the way I treat the Jews. I think I'm going to let out 100,000 Jews today. Where does Gorbachev get that thought? You see? Now, of course, it has reasoning and logic. But why all of a sudden does he have the thought? What makes a leader suddenly want to do something? Or want to control something? You see? What? The Kedusha that's brought to the world. It doesn't come from the leader himself. It's not a thought that he himself has and he decides to do something, you know, and he's met with the Politburo and he decides to do this thing. That's an absolute mistake. What controls the events of the world is the Kedusha, or the Tumah that comes down because of the sins, or the mitzvahs of a person. But when that comes down, it doesn't only come down to you, it fills the world, mankind as generally. And what happens is the subtlety of that light enters all those who are given dominion and control of the world. All those leaders who have apparent control. And suddenly their thinking processes are altered, their feelings are altered. They suddenly decide, well, let me do this. Or let me do that, or I feel like I'm in a merciful mood today. But why do they feel that way? Well, you can give all kinds of explanations. You can say that the reason why they feel that way is because they got up on the good side, or because they finally came to their senses and they realized that politically, the best political objective, their best political interests are fulfilled this way. You see. But that has nothing to do with anything. The reason why they feel that way is because you started learning. That's why. And that's what the pasuk says. Talmidei Chachamim Ma'adim Shalom Ba'olam. You want to bring peace to the world? You don't have to go out and demonstrate. You don't have to become a statesman or a diplomat. You don't have to become a warrior or a soldier. You don't have to become a scientist and discover new weaponry or new technology. You want to bring Shalom on the beer? Then what you've got to do is you've got to remove the Makatlik. You've got to remove him. You see, you've got to push him back, the accusing angel, the Satan. You've got to take away the power which he has in front of the Bezin Shemala. And that's the power of the tumah and the evil in the world. That's what it is. Weaken him, and you weaken all the prophecies which he represents. Every political event which happens, every destruction which comes in the world, every evil thing, harmful, painful thing, comes because he has succeeded in his kitruk. The Satan has succeeded with Hanhagas HaMishpach to say, mankind deserves this punishment or that pain. That's why. And where is he taking that strength? He just doesn't open his mouth, he takes the strength from you. You give him that strength, you see. That's the critical thing. The Satan has no power without us. We give him every inch, every spark of power that he has. You must understand it. We think sometimes that the Satan runs up there the whole time trying to find accusations, you see. He's just trying to find a way to get rid of us, you see. And that's his job. No, that's not really what's going on. You see, he's trying to find accusations. He depends on us. If we give him nothing, he has nothing. He can't even appear in front of the Bezin Shemala then, because he's got nothing to say. He looks like an absolute idiot. But if he has something, if he has some of the strength, some of the koyach that you have given him, then he runs up to the Bezin Shemala, the din, and the Bonisham then passes the contact on the Mishpat that he's right. So what happens? The strength that you have given him, you see, the strength that you have given him to accuse becomes the self-same strength to actually execute and punish. Where does it stop? Where does he have the koyach to run down and start destroying? Where does he have that power to annihilate, to cause pain, to destroy? Where? Where does he have that? It comes from the same source of the accusation. It's your power. It's the kedusha that you should have brought down for yourself. Instead, you gave it to him. You see. You gave it to him. And with that, he runs back. And he says, let's show them. Let's demonstrate what the consequence of their ma'asim are. You see. Let's demonstrate that. Tamid HaChachamim, when you sit and learn, you see, you rob him of his strength. You rob him. He doesn't have that strength anymore, whatsoever. He can't accuse. Hence what happens is the world begins to be filled with good, with peace. And suddenly you see all things all over the world. Peaceful events. I'm going to tell you a very interesting thing. Okay? I'm going to make you as a prophet. Or many prophets. You see. And I'm not being facetious. You see. If you understand how these things work, you can pick up a newspaper every day and you can tell me what the state of the world is in the Hanhagas Mishpat. You can tell me. Because you can look at the political events and sometimes, many times, you can see where the things are shifting and where the things are going. You see. If you see that political events are such that they're leading the world to peace, that means that the ascendancy is the Toiv and Kedusha. In some way, mankind has found the Tchusim to carry it through in this way. But if you find many evil things happening, you see, if you find great wars, plagues, earthquakes, God knows what else, everything that happens, you know it is a time of din. And you know that the world is in an aspect of din. These things which happen to the world, these things are not haphazard, they're not coincidences, they're not accidental. These are direct responses to the din that's popping up there. You want to know what that din is? Look in the paper, look in the New York Times, read it carefully, you see. It will tell you exactly what is being popping in the world at that time, in a basic way. That's how you must understand human events. Human events are either the result of Hanhagas Mishpat, or the result of what? Of Tchusim that mankind has. And if they don't have the Tchusim, then they become the result of Hanhagas HaYichud. That's its objective. That's its dramatic objective. And what's that? To save the Bria from its own destruction. To save the Bria from the kippur of the Satan and the annihilation which it poses. Why does mankind have to be annihilated? Really? If he has what? Evil? Basically. What's the reason that if mankind does chatoim, that the world must be annihilated? Why? Who can tell me why? Why? Why should the world be annihilated? Why should mankind be annihilated? If the sum total of humanity fails to do its job, why should they be destroyed? Why? Who can answer it?
My brother last night was saying something about the world having to be destroyed before we can get to the point of Hashem being on the earth.
But why? Why are we on the threat of annihilation? Very simply. No, very simply. Why? Because we failed to Masakana Masufa. You must remember the ultimate objective. This is not a game. This game doesn't exist because the Baruch Hashem wanted to figure out a new scenario. It exists for a certain reason. You see. And what's that? The Baruch Hashem says to the Neshama, look, I can't let you into Elam Habo. I can't give you Atava unless you earn it. And that's it. If you earn it, you have it. If you don't earn it, you can't get it. It's as simple as that. That's what the din demands. That's what Na'am Niksufa. And where does Na'am Niksufa come from, as we said? It comes from the I-it incompatibility. It comes from the fact that the Neshama has an aspect or is in the shadow of God. Because of the fact that the neshama is a shadow of God in its ability to experience and be aware of self. You see, it therefore demands hatova in a very high exalted way. You see, the neshama says, I can only take your hatova if I produce it, if I create it, if I contribute to it. In a certain sense, that is its best want. You see, it's because the neshama is so high, it's so exalted. It's because of the terms that it presents to the Rebbeinu Shalom. That hatava is not unconditional but conditional. That necessitates the holding of din. That's why the Rebbeinu Shalom looks at the maisim or at the deeds of men with a fine tooth comb. Because the Rebbeinu Shalom must decide whether or not you have been mistaken in on the sufa. If you have not done it, if you haven't earned it, then the Rebbeinu Shalom cannot give you Olam Haba. If he can't give you Olam Haba, why then do you exist? The answer is, you don't exist. That's why the Sultan runs up and says, annihilate. Not because he's a bad guy. You see? He's simply representing the Amlik Sufa. You see? Let's be done him l'kav tzchus. Let's understand what he's doing. He's only doing his job. You see? He wants us to the Rebbeinu Shalom says, look, they don't have any custom there. There's no Amlik Sufa. If you give them Olam Haba, they're going to all be miserable. So what kind of Olam Haba is that? So the Rebbeinu Shalom says, you're right. So what should we do? Drop it. We're not getting anywhere with this bunch. That's what it is. We have given the Sultan his power. We have given it. We have created the conditions. We have said to the Rebbeinu Shalom, we want Olam Haba conditionally. That's what we told the Rebbeinu Shalom. So the Rebbeinu Shalom therefore turns around and says, okay, let's do it that way. Please, work, contribute, create, produce. And then we go around and do what? We destroy. We don't produce a thing. We take advantage. We abuse. You see. We profit. We rob. We cheat. Angels. The reason why I have my purpose to begin with is to satisfy your Namak Sufa. You're the one who hired me. You, the neshama, hired me, the Sultan, to do the job of making sure that you're going to enjoy your Olam Haba. Not that you're going to be miserable. You see, so when I go around and I say, you see, you cannot have Olam Haba, I'm doing what you have instructed me to do. You don't like it anymore? You want to take it back? You want to rip up the contract? It doesn't work. Why? Because I have it here in full ink with your signature right on the bottom. 2 witnesses notarized. Go find that document. That is the Hanhagas HaMishpat. That's the power of the Hanhagas HaMishpat. We have authorized it. We sustain it. We demand it. It functions, you see. It functions at our request. But it functions without mercy. It functions without looking away. You see, without softness. It is hard. It is severe. It is serious. It is responsible. It is reliable. And it is very, very diligent. You see, it is on top of your neck every second of your life. Is a little guy sitting there, maybe not literally, but there's an aspect of a force sitting there with a little notebook in his hand, jotting down on that memo everything you do. Why? Because he's worried about your Namak Sufa. That's what he does. That's his job, and he does it very well. You see, the Rebbeinu got the problem. He's got to save you from yourself. He's got to save you from a contractual obligation that's about to destroy you. That's an incredible thing. What does that? That's the Hanhagas HaYichud. You see, he's got to get out of a contract without absolving the contract. How do you do that? How do you save a guy who just signed away his life possessions? How do you prevent him from being a pauper? How do you do that? That's the job of the Hanhagas HaYichud. You see. Is it working? That's why we're here. Is it working today? Yes. It keeps the rock from the edge of the precipice. That's what it is. That's how bad our Namak Sufa is. You see. We have done such a poor job in Masakanam the Sufa, you see, that it's got to work overtime, you see, just to keep the contractor, the one who wrote the contract, alive, you see, to keep the contract from accepting its death. That's the function of another HaYichud. That is the subjective. Grammatically, and that's what it has to do. How does it do that? That's what we have to discuss. Its mechanism, and how does it deal with the Hanhagas Mishpah? That we must discuss next time. Okay. See, the problem is, and this whole thing, the big problem is that, I just want to say this one word, the big problem that we have is that all the sounds like a Shia that I just given, you see, it's all neatly wrapped in a Shia, but it's not a Shia. It really is what's happening. It's really what's going on. This is the reality. It's really the forces that you're really controlling it. You see, and that's what must be understood. Okay.